What is going on, guys? Hey, I want to come back at you and bring you some Jordan Peterson and doing an interview with Dennis Prager. And I mean, these two guys, I mean, they are really two very intelligent men that realize there's something more out there, and they realize there's something bigger, I think, than themselves. I don't want to put words in their mouths, but yeah, I definitely believe these two understand and try to align themselves with the best thing they can. But hey, look, guys, if you would, please hit that like button and subscribe to my content if you haven't already. And this clip I'm going to show you, I'm going to do a few of this interview because it's a lengthy interview, but they're talking about facing things in your life and facing yourself and facing the darkness in order to move forward in your life. But anyways, guys, thanks, and if you would, again, hit that like button and subscribe to my content.
Tragic view of life. And ironically, if you don't have that, you can't be happy. So it's just another example of this, and that you're getting this message out. If you want to comment on that, please. If not, I'll go on. You are such an, I watch you and you're such an intense listener. I don't know when you're going to react. So if you...
Well, there's this old idea. You all know this idea. It's an idea that's expressed, for example, in the classic Disney movie, which I really like, called Pinocchio. And you know, when Pinocchio is attempting to free himself from the forces that manipulate him as a puppet and to become an autonomous being, he is required to go to the darkest place to find the worst monster and face that voluntarily. And in doing so, he rescues his father. And that's a very old idea. I don't know how old it is. It's one of the oldest ideas we have in written form, and there's no doubt that in its pre-written form, it would be tens of thousands of years older than that. And it's a very strange idea that you have to journey to the darkest abyss to free the spirit of your father. But there's a reason for it, and it has to do with the tragic view of life, which is that you can't discover what you're capable of being or withstanding, and those are the same things, without, if you hide away from any of the things about life that are terrible but true. And the reason you can't discover who you are without doing that is that only necessity will force that out of you. I mean that from the perspective of learning. If you go work in a palliative care ward, you'll learn to deal with death. You'll learn the psychological strategies necessary. I'm
going to separate here for a second, guys, because I think this is a really important point he's making. So often what we think of as tragedies or hardships in our lives, I don't want to say tragedies, but hardships in our lives force something out of us. It forces us to confront ourselves and to learn whatever skills are necessary to move forward, to deal with whatever issue it is. And I find that fascinating that we have to, again, travel to the depths of darkness to kind of awaken something inside of us that I think in a way that we're turning to religious, if you want to look at this religiously or spiritually. Sometimes when we're going through the most difficult times, a part of us realizes almost we want to at that point turn back to the Father, turn back to God, and we realize that we have to kind of unblock this anger and this pain inside of us to get to that place. But again, I think at a very basic level, in this man, both these two gentlemen, I mean, are absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I mean, we sometimes we're not going to learn skills unless we're forced into learning those skills. If a young man stays at home with his mom and his dad, he's not going to learn what he needs to learn to move forward in his life, to become a fisherman. If he's not going to become a fisherman if somebody gives him a fish to eat every day. He's going to stay there with a roof over his head, a warm bed, and food in his belly. He's not going to become what he needs to become.
The steps, you'll become more informed. But it's deeper than that even. We know now from a biological perspective that if you put yourself in new situations, in new and challenging situations, that new genes turn on in your nervous system and code for new proteins that produce new neurological structures. And so you can't even be what you are fully biologically unless you expose yourself to everything that you can expose yourself to as you journey through life. The old idea of
that's so cool.
Pilgrimage was predicated on that idea, as is walking the in Chartres Cathedral, the labyrinth. The idea that you walk the labyrinth in Chartres and you come to the center is that you traverse every corner of the world, quarter by quarter, and then you come to the center. And the center is the center of the church, and it's the center of the crucifixion, it's the center of suffering. And you can't get to what that center signifies without having journeyed everywhere. And so the tragic view of life is necessary because it puts you on the journey that reveals to yourself who you could be if you were courageous as you could be and as truthful as you could be. And that's equivalent to discovering, to revivifying your dead father, because you are an ancient creature in some sense, and perhaps one with a spark of divinity inherent in it. But you will never release that unless you're willing to go everywhere that you have to go, because only necessity will call that out of you. And so you can't be happy. You can't be complete without, you can't know what you could withstand. You can't have any proper sense of self-respect unless you know what you can tolerate. And if you avoid everything that you have reason to avoid.
Yeah, it's like if we do something that's hard, it builds up a sense of confidence in ourselves, and we understand that we can withstand a whole lot more than what we thought we could before. And we can deal with something. We can, if we're, if we learn how to, do mountain climbing or whatever, or it's, scaling a cliff, and we scale up this cliff and we thought, oh my God, it's so hard. I could not do that, or I could not, there's no way I can do that. And we do it. What kind of confidence does that give? What kind of possibilities does that open up in our head? One reason I got into weightlifting when I was younger, one reason I got into weightlifting was the whole idea of like doing something, lifting something that I couldn't lift beforehand, some months back. Like when I first started in the gym when I was 14, you know, I mean, it's like I couldn't do certain things. And then so many months later, I was, you know, double the weight on the bench press, and like you're doing something. And you realize just those small acts. It doesn't matter what you bench press, but it's the act of overcoming something, doing something, and you realize that the whole world, in a way, is open. You've opened up your mind to the possibility that you can change it. You can make something different if you work at it. And again, I think if you work in a particular direction and you go towards good, you go towards the things that are good, that are going to be good for you, healthy for you. And don't go into the darkness. But I mean, go into the darkness to deal with the problems that are there. But if you deal with things and then you go in a direction of good, of right, I think in a way you're lifted up. And but you got to go into that place, as what he was saying earlier. You've got to be willing to go into that dark place and to realize what you're angry about and what is blocking you and what do you need to do to become more. What do you need to face in you?
You son of a